The lobby of the Chateau Frontenac Rideau smelled like money, that particular mix of fresh lilies, leather, and something warm they probably piped through the vents, just to remind you that you didn't belong. Kweku Asante walked in through the revolving door wearing a gray canvas jacket, the kind you buy at Canadian Tire because it keeps out the wind and nothing else. His boots were scuffed at the toe. He had a duffel bag over one shoulder that had seen better decades. He stood in the entrance for exactly 3 seconds, taking in the marble floors and the chandelier that probably cost more than his mother's house in Brampton, and then he walked toward the front desk like he had every right to be there. Because he did. He waited. The woman at the desk, tall, blonde hair in a chignon, so tight it must have hurt, was speaking to another guest, an older white man in a wool coat. She was smiling, leaning slightly forward, laughing at something he said that wasn't funny. Kweku watched the exchange. He had been watching exchanges like this his whole life. He knew exactly what it was. He waited 3 minutes. She finished with the man in the wool coat, watched him walk away, and then picked up her phone. Dialed something. Turned her back. Kweku set his duffel bag on the floor and waited. Another staff member came out from a back office, younger male, a small red maple leaf pin on his lapel that all the Rideau staff wore. He glanced at Kweku, then at his screen, then back at Kweku. "Help you with something?" "Room reservation," Kweku said. "Under Asante." The young man typed, frowned slightly, typed again. "I'm not seeing anything under that name. Try Harrow Group. The room may be under the corporate account." The frown deepened. He typed slowly this time, like he was hoping the answer would change. It didn't. "Sir, we have a reservation here, but this is our executive suite. Are you?" He paused in the particular way people pause when they want to say something they know they shouldn't. "Are you checking in on behalf of someone?" "I'm checking in for myself," Kweku said. There was a silence that lasted just long enough to mean something. The woman with the chignon had turned back around now. She was watching without watching, the way hotel staff are trained to observe. Kweku noticed her notice him. He said nothing. "I'll need to see ID," the young man said. Kweku handed over his driver's license, Ontario, Brampton address, and a credit card. Kweku handed that over too. Black card, the kind that has no limit printed on it because they don't print it. The young man looked at the card, something shifted in his face. Not guilt, not quite, more like recalibration. He ran it anyway. "Mr. Asante, 3 nights, executive suite, Lakeview." "That's right. Welcome to the Rideau." He didn't say welcome back. He didn't say it the way Marguerite at the front desk of the Fairmont in Vancouver always said it. Warm, immediate, like she meant it. He said it the way you say something when you realize you've made an error you can't take back. Kweku took his key card and found his own way to the elevator. He hadn't chosen the Rideau by accident. 6 months earlier, from his office on the 22nd floor of a building in downtown Toronto, Kweku had reviewed a proposal to acquire 3 boutique hotel properties in Ontario and Quebec. The Rideau was one of them, Harrow Group, which Kweku had built from a $10,000 loan from his uncle Emmanuel in 2009 to a hospitality management company with 14 properties across Canada, had been eyeing the Rideau's parent company for 2 years. Before any acquisition, Kweku had a practice. He visited the property himself. Not as a buyer, as a guest. Not a secret shopper, not an inspector, just a man with a duffel bag and scuffed boots who wanted to see what the place actually was when nobody was performing. He had done it with every property he'd ever bought. A motel outside Sudbury, where the night manager had been lovely and the breakfast was terrible, and the beds were like sleeping on packed snow. A lodge near Thunder Bay, where the staff had given him the wrong room 3 times, and the general manager had personally driven 40 minutes in a snowstorm to bring him the correct key and apologize. A bed and breakfast in Prince Edward County, run by a woman named Giselle who'd made him tea and told him the history of every piece of furniture in the place. He bought the lodge. He bought the bed and breakfast. He did not buy the motel. The Rideau was different from all of them. The Rideau was what people thought of when they thought of luxury in this country. Old money. Grandeur. A dining room that had hosted prime ministers. A wine cellar that dated to 1924. The parent company was struggling. The building needed work it couldn't afford. The brand had coasted for decades on reputation, and was now discovering that reputation, without maintenance, turns to dust. Kweku had 3 days to decide whether this place was worth saving. He ate alone in the dining room that first night. The maître d', a thin man named, according to his pin, Bertrand, had seated him at a table near the service entrance. Kweku had eaten at this hotel 3 times in his professional life, always in meetings, always in good suits, and he had sat near the window each time. He noted the table. He noted the service entrance. He said nothing. He ordered the Quebec lamb with root vegetables and the wild leek bisque to start. The bisque arrived cold, not just cooled, cold, the way something gets when it sits for a while. He touched the rim of the bowl with his finger. It hadn't been warm in at least 10 minutes. He ate it anyway. The lamb took 40 minutes. Around him, tables that had been seated after him received their mains first. A couple near the window with matching fleece vests from Mont Tremblant. A family of 4 speaking French, children included, who had arrived 15 minutes after Kweku and were already cutting into their duck. When the lamb arrived, it was gray at the center, not pink, not properly rested. Gray, like something that had been kept warm under a heat lamp for too long, waiting for a different purpose. He ate enough to know what he was tasting. He set down his fork. He had been in the food service industry long enough to know that a kitchen performing badly on one table wasn't always accident. Sometimes it was a bad night, a rushed cook, the kind of chaos that happens in any professional kitchen on a Friday. But sometimes a kitchen performing badly on one table, while the tables around it were served quickly and well, was something. He watched the dining room for another hour, drinking the house red, which was perfectly fine. He watched who got warm food. He watched who got eye contact from the servers. He watched who had their water glass refilled without asking. He had a notebook. He wrote nothing in it. He didn't need to. The next morning, he went down to breakfast before 7. The breakfast service was in a smaller room off the main lobby, bright, with big windows looking out at the canal. In October, the canal had that particular gray-gold light that made everything look like an oil painting. Kweku sat down at the first available table and picked up the menu. A server came by. Young woman, natural hair pulled back, the red maple leaf pin slightly crooked on her jacket. She had an efficient kind of grace, the kind that comes from doing this job well for long enough that the body just remembers. She set down water without being asked. "Good morning," she said, and she meant it. "Can I start you with coffee or tea?" "Coffee, please." Black Kitchen's doing the Quebec maple French toast this morning, if you're looking for a recommendation. It's worth it. "That sounds good," Kweku said. "I'll have that." She smiled, a real one, and left. Kweku looked around the room. A couple at the window, the same woolcoat man from check-in the night before, now reading the Globe and Mail and eating eggs. A young woman alone at a corner table, with a laptop and what looked like a manuscript she was marking up with a red pen. 2 older women, sisters maybe, by the way they kept finishing each other's sentences, even though they were barely speaking. The server came back with his coffee. Then a small dish of butter, shaped with a mold into a maple leaf because of course. He almost smiled. The French toast arrived, and it was exactly what she had said it was. Thick brioche, properly eggy, the kind of maple syrup that wasn't cheap. Proper amber, from somewhere not far from here. It was warm. It was well-timed. The plate was clean and the food on it had been cared for. He ate slowly. Across the room, a man who had been seated after Kweku was waving at the server. Not urgently, just the particular wave of someone who assumed his wave would be the priority. She was with another table. She held up a finger, polite, professional, and finished what she was doing before going to him. He frowned at her. She didn't flinch. Kweku watched this. He filed it away. After breakfast, he stopped her on the way out. "The French toast," he said. "Tell the kitchen it was excellent." She looked slightly surprised. "I will. Thank you. How long have you been here?" She tilted her head, not unfriendly. 4 years. "You like it here?" A small pause. "Most days," she said, which was honest, and the honesty of it meant something. He nodded. "Thank you," he said, and left. Her name, he found out later, was Tomoko. He found this out because on the second evening he went back to the dining room and asked Bertrand, the maître d', about the breakfast service. "The server in the breakfast room," Kweku said. "Natural hair, maple leaf pin on crooked." "What's her name?" Bertrand's face arranged itself into something careful. "That would be Tomoko. She's been with us some time." "She's good," Kweku said. Bertrand nodded as if Kweku had said something mildly interesting about the weather. "I'd like a table by the window tonight," Kweku said. "We're quite fully booked at the window, sir." Kweku looked at the dining room. 2 tables by the window were empty. "Those 2 aren't occupied," he said. "Reserved," Bertrand said. "For what time?" A pause. 8 o'clock. It was 7:15. Kweku looked at him steadily. I can seat you there until 8, Bertrand said, like the idea had just occurred to him. If you'd like, that would be fine, Kweku said. He sat by the window. No one came for that table at 8. No one came for it at 8:30 either. He ate his dinner. Properly warm this time, he noted, properly paced, and watched the canal lights come on outside, their reflection stretching long and gold across the water. On his second morning, he found the maintenance log. This wasn't snooping. He had asked, legitimately, as a guest, about an issue in his suite, a radiator that rattled through the night like it was trying to communicate something in code. He had called the front desk at 11 p.m. and been told maintenance would come by in the morning. At 7 a.m., no one had come. He went down himself and asked at the desk and was handed a clipboard by a flustered young man in facilities while that young man answered his phone. Kweku looked at the clipboard. There were 63 outstanding maintenance requests, not for the whole property. For the east wing alone, where the guest rooms were, leaking faucet, non-functioning heat, bathroom fan, leak under sink, broken safe, light fixture, mold visible in bathroom grout, one entry read, and the word mold had been circled in pencil, then apparently ignored for 11 weeks. Kweku set the clipboard down and went for a walk. He walked the property the way he always walked properties he was considering. Slowly, with his hands in his pockets, not looking like he was looking for anything. He had learned this from his uncle Emmanuel, who had come to Canada from Kumasi with $40 and a refusal to be intimidated, and who had told Kweku once, walk into any room like you own it, not because of arrogance, because arrogance is about making other people feel small. Walk in like you own it because you have the right to be anywhere you have the right to be. He walked through the service corridors. He walked through the area behind the kitchen. He didn't enter, just observed what he could from the corridor, and what he could see was a walk-in cooler door that wasn't closing properly and a stack of delivery boxes still sitting unpacked from what looked, by the labels, to be 2 days ago. He walked through the storage area near the conference rooms, which smelled like damp and hadn't been properly climate-controlled in some time. He walked up to the roof access, which should have been locked and wasn't. He came back down and stood in the lobby for a while, watching the morning foot traffic. The man from the Globe and Mail, back with his wool coat, a conference group arriving with lanyards already around their necks, self-important, a little loud. Tomoko moving through the breakfast crowd across the hall with that particular efficiency, like a current in water, and he saw something. Bertrand was standing near the entrance to the dining room, speaking with another staff member, a young man Kweku hadn't seen before. Bertrand was speaking quietly, but his posture was pointed. The young man's shoulders were pulled in. His eyes were slightly down. Bertrand said something, and the young man nodded, and Bertrand said something else, and the young man nodded again. But this time his jaw had tightened. Kweku knew that posture. He had worn it himself many years ago in a kitchen in Mississauga where the head chef had made it his personal mission to demonstrate in small ways and large ones that Kweku would never be more than he allowed him to be. He crossed the lobby. "Bertrand," he said. Bertrand turned, the careful face again. "Mr. Asante, can I help you? Everything all right?" A small pause. "Of course." The young man had moved away. Kweku watched him go. "Breakfast tomorrow," Kweku said. "Whatever Tomoko recommends." "I'll make sure she knows you'll be in," Bertrand said, in the tone of a man doing someone a favor. He called Marcus Holt that afternoon. Marcus was his head of operations, had been for 6 years, was one of the first people Kweku had hired when Harrow Group was still being run out of a shared office in Etobicoke. Kweku trusted his instincts and his spreadsheets in equal measure, which was rare. "The property is structurally sound," Kweku said. He was sitting on the edge of the bed in his suite, still in his jacket, looking out at the canal. "The location is exceptional. The brand has enough residual recognition that we could work with it." "But," Marcus said. He always knew when there was a but. "The culture is wrong," Kweku said. "Not salvageably wrong, just directionally wrong. Which means whoever we put in place needs to be someone who genuinely understands what this kind of thing does to a property. What the rot looks like from the inside. How bad is the rot? Maintenance log in the East Wing has 63 outstanding items. One of them is a mold report from 11 weeks ago. Kitchen delivery boxes unpacked after 2 days. A maître d' who is running his dining room like it's a personal court and he decides who gets favors. A pause on the line. The service, one excellent server in the breakfast room, Kweku said. 4 years with the property. Probably underpaid, definitely undersupported. She recommended the French toast both days. The French toast is genuinely good. High praise, Marcus said, because he knew Kweku. I want to talk to the general manager before I leave, Kweku said, not as a potential buyer. Just as a guest, he won't know what he's looking at. That's the point. His name was Vincent Prudhomme, and he ran the Rideau the way a man runs something he inherited rather than built, with a certain proprietorial ease, the confidence of someone who has never had to earn the room he's standing in. He met Kweku in the lobby the next morning, summoned by a polite request from the front desk to have a conversation about a guest concern. He was a large man, well-dressed, a crest pin on his lapel instead of the maple leaf that his staff wore. "Mr. Asante," he said, extending a hand, "I understand you've had some concerns during your stay. I do apologize. What can we do for you?" "I want to tell you something," Kweku said. "Not a complaint, an observation." Prudhomme settled back slightly on his heels, attentive but relaxed, a man performing attentiveness. "There is a maintenance log in your east wing with 63 open items," Kweku said. "One of them, from 11 weeks ago, is a report of visible mold in a guest bathroom. A walk-in cooler in your kitchen corridor is not sealing properly. Your roof access was unsecured this morning, and your maitre d' has been seating guests differently based on criteria that have nothing to do with availability." The attentiveness stopped being a performance. Prudhomme's face became very still. "I also want to tell you," Kweku continued, "that you have a server in your breakfast room named Tomoko, who has been here 4 years and is doing her job with more integrity than most of this building's systems deserve. I don't know what she's being paid, but I'd guess it's not enough." Prudhomme had the look of a man assembling a response, weighing options, deciding which lane to take. Kweku had seen that look before too. "Mr. Asante, I appreciate you raising these." "My name is Kweku Asante," Kweku said. "I'm the CEO of Rideau Group. We have been reviewing the Lacroix Properties portfolio for acquisition, of which this property is one. I've spent 3 days here as a guest because I needed to understand what this hotel actually is, not what its brochure says." The color left Prudhomme's face in a way that reminded Kweku of winter, how it happens gradually and then all at once. "I'm not here to humiliate anyone," Kweku said. "I'm telling you this because you have something salvageable here. The bones are good. The location is exceptional. You have at least one member of staff who genuinely cares about what she does. But the culture of this place, the way certain guests are treated, the way certain staff are managed, that will kill a property faster than any maintenance backlog. I have seen it happen. I have been the guest that a place like this decided was not worth its full attention." He let that sit for a moment. "If this acquisition proceeds, things will change. Leadership will change. Priorities will change. The maple leaf pins will stay, because I think they're a nice touch. But the rest of it, what's happening in your dining room, what's accumulating in your maintenance log, what a good server can see and a general manager apparently cannot, that's what I'm here to assess." Prudhomme said nothing for a long moment, and then, "What happens now?" "Now I go back to Toronto," Kweku said, "and my team will be in touch with the Lacroix people by the end of the week." He picked up his duffel bag. "Tell Tomoko the maple French toast is worth keeping on the menu," he said. "Whatever else changes, tell her I said that." He walked through the revolving door. The October air off the canal was cold and clean and smelled like leaves and water and the particular freshness of a city that knows winter is coming and does not blink at it. The deal closed in January. Marcus sent Kweku the signed papers at 6:45 in the morning with no message, just a single maple leaf emoji, which was as effusive as Marcus ever got. Rideau Group took possession of the Rideau property in February. The East Wing maintenance was addressed inside the first 3 weeks. The walk-in cooler was replaced. The roof access was secured. Bertrand, the maître d', was offered a transition package and accepted it without discussion, which told Kweku everything. The dining room was restructured. Tables were redistributed. The booking system was overhauled so that seating was assigned by arrival time and reservation sequence and nothing else. The menu was reviewed by a chef Kweku, brought in from a small restaurant in the Laurentians, a woman named Adele who had opinions about food the way some people have opinions about justice, deeply, personally, without apology. Tomoko was promoted to breakfast and brunch supervisor, a role that came with a proper salary increase. A small team of her own, and the authority to make decisions about her section without running them past 4 levels of management. She called the front desk from the break room the morning she found out, which was how the story came to Kweku, relayed by Marcus, who had heard it from the new general manager, who had been there. Tomoko had stood in the break room with her phone in her hand and said, to no one in particular, well, I'll be, which was not nothing. Kweku flew back to the Rideau in April for a soft reopening of the renovated East Wing. It was a minor event. No press, no fanfare, just a small gathering of the property team and a few invited guests, with Adele's food and a bar featuring local wines and a Quebec gin that tasted like a forest. He arrived through the revolving door in a better jacket than last time, though he had kept the scuffed boots. He had thought about that. He had kept them deliberately. Tomoko was working the morning service when he arrived. The reopening dinner was that evening, but the hotel was open. Guests were in-house, and she was at her station. She saw him come through the lobby. She recognized him a second before she recognized who he was. The recognition shifted in her in 2 stages. From I know this person to this is that person. She came over. Mr. Asante, she said. Good morning, he said. Is the French toast still on the menu? She smiled. The real one. Every day, she said. He sat at the table by the window. Outside, the canal was still frozen at the edges but breaking up in the middle, that particular moment in April when you can see winter and spring at the same time, each refusing to yield completely. The French toast arrived warm. The maple syrup was from a farm 40 minutes north of the city. The coffee was black. He ate slowly, and he watched the morning come in through the windows, and he thought about his uncle Emmanuel, who had said, walk in like you own it, not because of arrogance. Because you have the right to be anywhere you have the right to be. Some rooms, Kweku had learned, you earn the slow way, with patience and work, and a willingness to sit at the table near the service entrance and watch what the place really is before you decide what it can become. He had sat in that dining room 3 years ago. As a man, no one had offered a stool. He had come back to a place that was, slowly, learning to be what it always could have been. The bell above the front door rang. New guests coming in. The desk staff, new faces, properly trained, the maple leaf pins on straight, looked up and said good morning, and they meant it.